Hello, it's Anthony, and this is the 6th video of the series Paint. Today we're going to talk about glazing, this new step, this new phase of the work. We'll see how the color starts to come into the painting. Quite interestingly, how this very slow process is developed. Now, before we look at how this work is done, I want to just consider why we are doing this. It's a step in the past, right? I'm going back to a painting that was done in the 1400s. I want to review a little bit why this can be an important step for an artist to take. We're looking at tradition. We're looking at a tradition of painting that really kind of started with this phase, this period. Oil painting. Antonello was one of the first Italian painters to experiment with oil paint, and so this was really something that was being developed in that time, and we have up to now this tradition. So how can looking at tradition benefit a painter? Well, we call these people old masters. They're renowned artists from the past. Leonardo, Rembrandt. These are artists that have mastered the craft, which is why we call them old masters, because they were able to take this particular technique to an extreme refinity. Their works, even today, continue to inspire artists. They continue to draw a public. They captivate art enthusiasts, even today. One has to consider that. What is the value of learning from this? Well, you learn the fundamental principles that are within the technique. Composition, form, light, shadow, color, all of these things. By studying an old painting, an old master's painting, you incorporate those steps into your own vocabulary. They become part of your own work. So you are in line, in a way, with tradition. This kind of knowledge provides a solid formation because we have the element of time that has shown this artistic journey has a value. So we have the underpainting that we saw in the last videos. Monochromatic base layers before the colors. This helps you to establish a tonal value. This is very, very important because you are just working on one aspect of the painting, the tonal value. So you're focusing on that rather than the intricate interactions of color and all of the other things that happen when you start to open the box of colors. You kind of focus on light and shadow, chiaroscuro, how these two elements interact and how they create depth, three-dimensionality. This is what comes from this kind of work. These old masters were masterful at this. Glazing involves the layering. So we have transparent, translucent colors that are over the dried underpainting. This helps you to achieve a certain luminosity and a radiancy in the color that you can't get with direct painting. The glazes interact. Everything interacts with what is below. And you have an enhancement, a richness of color. Often when we stand in front of these paintings, they're just incredible how those colors are achieved, the richness in those colors. In fact, when we see one of those paintings that have been restored, it's like, oh my God, something that is otherworldly, a sense of depth and complexity. We understand a deeper aspect of the technique by doing it. This knowledge helps you to create a more sophisticated and visually striking artwork. This also helps to inspire creativity. We have ideas that come from looking at old masters, and it expands, obviously, your horizon, exposing you to different styles, different subject matter, different historical contexts, which can be important. Learning about underpainting and glazes provides this solid framework for your growth. It's a step. I would not say that you should just do this all of your time. It's something that helps you to develop your own unique style, puts you in line with the tradition. You're honoring this rich artistic tradition of the past. And it helps to understand the memory of painting. I'm in the studio now, and the painting is behind me. I've done a little bit of work with the background, just some geometric forms and lights. I'll be working with that a little bit later. Today I'm going to concentrate on the figure, and in order to start, we're going to look at glazing. Okay, I just want to talk about the materials I'll be using. We have turpentine, and this is what is called stand oil. It's also, you can find it called Venetian oil. I've got some colors. This is a raw umber, a green umber that we used before, alizarin crimson, and ochre, yellow ochre. Then, of course, I have the palette knife, and I'm going to be using this brush. But I wanted to show you, you have to pay particular attention to the surface of the palette because it should be clean. And I use this tool to scrape, and then with a little turpentine I clean everything up so that this is very clean. Okay, this has to be clean because we're going to be working with transparent colors, and the transparent colors, they really corrupt very easily. In other words, they become dirty, and so I'm going to use clean turpentine, as clean as I can, and then I'm going to mix the colors. I'll start with the red. We need very little color, really little. Okay, and then I'll go to the yellow. These are very transparent colors, just to start with. They all are very transparent. And I'll use a little bit of the green. And then the raw umber. And with that, I should be able to make a pretty good brown. So I'm just going to mix this. And if you can think of this as 100%, this is 100% color. It's straight out of the tube, and we're going to make it much more transparent. Okay, I'll just mix it like that. And then I really just need a little bit of this. Just a little bit. You see, I don't need a lot. I'm going to use just this little part over here, and I'll save this. So this is the 100%. And I'm going to take the stand oil, and I'll put a drop of this stand oil on this. Okay, that's a little bit more than a drop, but that's okay because I want it transparent, you see. This is, I'll consider this like 50%. And so I'm going to mix this, cleaning the palette knife really well. See, this stand oil is very thick. It's very thick, and then I'm going to take half of this, maybe even a little bit more than half. And so this is my 50% here. Here's 100. Here's 50. And with this part that's 50, I'm going to drop in a little bit more stand oil. Okay, this is it. It's very transparent, you see. I can see almost right through it. The palette, I can see it. And I don't need much of this. That's why when I made the 100%, I actually took a lot of paint, but I don't need much of this. I'm using this in a very particular way. And okay, so, okay, now I'm taking a rather wide brush. It's a sable, very soft. I'm going to add a little bit of turpentine to the mixture. This is the 25% that I'm using. And I'm going to start glazing with the very, very transparent color. So I'm going to do everything. Take it off with the palette knife, scraping, like that. Surface, you see, it's very shiny. Okay, now with a little bit smaller brush, this is the 25%, this is the 50%, this is the 100%. So I'm going to just drop a little bit of turpentine into the 50%. So this is less transparent, and I'm going to use this to make a little bit darker areas. So for example, here in the hair, also take away color with the cloth. You see, if I want more highlight here on the shoulder, I can actually take this off and it will come back lighter. Do you see? And this part of the chest, I want to make this a little lighter up to the removed even some of the most delicate glazing in there. Now I can work a little bit more with yes, I don't want to do much with this because it's better to do this after you've glazed sometime, but I'm going to try to get the beard to come in a little bit more down here, just a little bit more, something like that. This too I'm going to remove with the small palette knife, just to take away. can start to see how the color is coming out from under the green. And okay, we're going to start by glazing some of the background. Okay, we did the glazing of the figure, and now we're going to glaze the background part. Yeah, you see how this is reflected, and this is opaque. You see there's a lot of reflection here because this has been glazed. This has already been glazed. Okay, there's not much light here, but I've mixed a blue, a little bit of a green, and some red. So this is the 100%. It's a little bit like a green, but with a little bit more blue. This is the 50%, and this is the 25%, the very transparent part. Okay, so just wanted to show you this. I've done this with, so I'm using a wide brush. It's not fine. I'm just going to use it to put the color down, and very little turpentine. Where I want, I can put more the 50% to make it darker. So there's like a 50% glaze here. I can make this darker. I can make all of the darker points. Okay, now I'm going to concentrate on the face and the body. I'm doing another glaze, another red glaze, a reddish glaze. I'm going to keep the hair and the beard a little bit out of the picture right now so I can concentrate on the flesh. Okay, so right here, you see I'm going to take it off. You see it's coming through greener. And if I do it with a rag, it becomes even more evident. Can you see the green is coming through? so I can bring my highlights back by using either the rag with the 50%. Now I'm going to mark in some darks here where the a little bit under the beard. Okay, I'm glazing again. This time I've mixed Prussian blue and ultramarine blue, and so I have the 100% here, I'm going to add a little bit of stand oil to it, to a pot. Okay, this is the thicker paint, the 100%, and I just want to put a little bit near the figure so that it becomes darker. So here I have mixed, I have yellow ochre and alizarin, crimson. And so I'll mix these. These are also very transparent colors, so they're not going to think that for today this is going to be okay. I'll just let it dry and then we'll go in with more color next time. It's starting to look a little bit like skin tone. I'd like to just finish with a little discussion about the memory. We talked about why old masters painting is important, also because of the memory, the past tradition. But I'd like to talk about this in a spiritual way. We need to understand a word that comes from Kabbalah, from Hebrew, reshimot. It means recording. Reshima, Rosham. It's spiritual information. In this information, we differentiate desire from desire, one desire from another desire. We differentiate intention from intention. We could say that these ideas could be differentiated between positive and negative. So we have positive desires, positive intentions, negative intentions. The idea of reshimot, this spiritual memory, this information, is similar to the material world. There's, in the spiritual world, just like the material world, nothing is created, everything is transformed. So these reshimot have always been, and they will always be. They're just transformed in each individual. So thinking about it as positive and negative, we see that these reshimot interact with each other. They correlate, they connect, disconnect, they define approaches and distances. There's a spiritual nearness, which is similarity of form. When spiritual forms are similar, they attract, they adhere to each other. So when we have a higher spiritual entity, a higher spiritual memory, this tends to collect with other similar memories, like aggregations. They create states within the spiritual entity. These genes, these memory genes, which are in us always, define where we are today. Are we in the past? Are we in the present? Are we in the future? So it's similar to a gene, reshimot. It carries a piece of spiritual information. And that information is measured in terms of levels of desire for pleasure. As we saw before, the desire for pleasure is very base. It's what we are created for. We're created for pleasure. We're created for love. So this feeling of receiving this pleasure is very, very innate. It's human. But it's also in all of the creation. There is a desire for pleasure in the still world, the world of stone and rock. There's the vegetative world. There's the animate world. All of these worlds contain also this reshimot. They contain the memory of the creation. These reshimot are awakened. Okay, they're there. They could be dormant. And because they are forever, they change and transform. And this transformation develops the creation. It actually is the moving factor towards the ultimate goal of creation, which is to advance, to be like the Creator, to be a similar form spiritually to the Creator, which is crossing through various phases of the will to receive and the will to bestow. So those desired states that we could call correction. So slowly the individual learns by correction, and the rashomon remain. So they are really essential to understanding spiritual advancement and eventually the adhesion to the Creator. Each created being requires participation in this process. Consciously, you can reach adhesion with the Creator by understanding actions that happen in your life. Actions that are performed, that we perform in order to attain this higher adhesion. The human within the human must activate this adhesion. Each person can connect to the rest of the levels of humanity also with the nature. All parts of nature are included within the human. They ascend and descend together. It's important to look at creation. And in fact, when we go back and look at an old painting, that's what we're doing. We're exploring the past. That inspiration is an awakening to ascend. When we see this work of art that inspires us, something that drives a desire, that is an awakening. It's a rashomon that is revealing itself. It was there already, but now you're awakening it. There's an inner inspiration towards spirituality. You are obliging yourself to clarify this connection, to discover the Creator, to adhere to the Creator, fulfilling the desire of the Creator, which is the desire of love. That gives him contentment. So we scrutinize every moment. We scrutinize to understand what this memory is giving us, searching for signs of adhesion. Thank you.